From these yuan bao's color and shape, Wang Yan Honglu knew that these were his. But he did not get mad. On the contrary, this piqued his interest even more. Entering my room and stealing the money wasn't hard, but he only tapped my shoulder one time with his fan, yet he was able to steal all the money that was inside my shirt without my noticing. That magical hand skill of his is indeed something rarely seen in this world. From the actions of these 6 men and a woman, it seemed like they were doing the inviting, and had invited 2 tables of men here for a drink. Because the guests hadn't arrived yet, the 7 of them were only drinking some light wine and the dishes hadn't been brought out either. On the other 2 tables was only 1 pair of chopsticks each. That meant there were only 2 guests. Wang Yan Honglu mused, these 7 freaks are waiting for guests. I wonder what kind of weird guests they'll have? After waiting for about the time it would take to boil a pot of water, a voice came up from downstairs. Amida Buddha. The blind man spoke up. The venerable monk Zhao Mu is here. He stood up. The other 6 freaks followed him as they all stood up in preparation to welcome the guest. Amida Buddha. The voice said again as a monk that looked every bit like a burnt piece of wood came walking up the stairs. This monk was about 40 or so. He was wearing a yellow monk's robe, and in his hand was a piece of wood with one end burnt black. It's unclear what it's used for. After the monk and the 7 of them went through the formal greetings, the poor scholar led him to one of the empty tables and all of them sat down. The monk rose slightly out of his seat in respect and said, "When that person came all the way to our gates, I knew that I was no match for him. Now that the 7 heroes of the south are willing to lend a hand, I could not be any more grateful." The blind man replied, "Venerable monk Zhao Mu, you do not need to be so polite. We, 7 brothers and sister, have all been dependent upon the monk's hospitality now and then. Now that monk Zhao Mu is in trouble, how could we not get involved? Besides, that man came and, relying entirely upon his martial arts skills, made trouble for the monk for no reason. It is clear that he thinks nothing of us here in the martial world from this area. Even if the venerable monk did not ask us, we would have come had we found out about." He hadn't finished what he was going to say when the stairs started groaning as if they were going to collapse. It was like a huge, heavy beast, like an elephant, or at least a huge water buffalo, was walking up the stairs. The owner of the place and the waiters were all screaming downstairs, "You idiot, you can't take that up there. The stairs are going to collapse. Quick, quick, stop him, get him back down here." But the sound of wood bending got louder and louder. Crack. One of the wooden stair treads snapped. Soon 2 more snapped as well. For a moment Wang Yan Honglu wasn't sure he believed what he was seeing. A Taoist priest came walking up the stairs with a huge copper vat in his hands. After taking another look, he was frightened out of his wits. The Taoist priest was the Chengchunzi elder Qu Chuji. Wang Yan Honglu's mission as an emissary to the Song imperial court was to coerce some of the officials of the Song court so that when they eventually invade the south, there would be agents lending a hand from the inside. The Song emissary, Wang Daoqian, who accompanied him down from Yanjing present-day Beijing, was greedy and corrupt. He had already secretly sworn allegiance to the Jin dynasty. When they arrived at Linnan, he was the one that did the legwork for Wang Yan Honglu. But unexpectedly he was killed suddenly by a Taoist priest. Even his head, heart, and liver was gone. Shocked and in fear that someone had found out about his plan, Wang Yan Honglu decided to lead his bodyguards and, with the best city guards of Linnan leading the way, personally chase down the assassin. When they chased him to Ox village they caught up with Qu Chuji. Unexpectedly, this Taoist priest was a martial arts master. Wang Yan Honglu hadn't even made a move before he was pierced through the shoulder by an arrow that Qu Chuji threw back. The men that came with him were all killed. If Wang Yan Honglu had not quietly crawled away during the confusion of the battle and was then rescued and treated by Bao Ziruo, the dignified and honorable royal prince of the Jin dynasty would have died there in a farm village without even really knowing how he had been killed. Wanyan Honglu forced himself to calm down, and noticed that Qu Chuji glanced at his face for a moment before moving his attention entirely onto the monk Zhao Mu and the group of 7. Obviously, he had not recognized him. Figuring that this was because he had been injured as soon as he showed up that night, so Qu Chuji was not able to see his face clearly. Only then did he feel a little better. But when his eyes moved back to the copper vat, he was shocked again, so much so that he almost jumped out of his chair. This kind of vat was common in temples and shrines and was commonly used for burning papers, incense and fake money for the dead. It was more than a meter across and was probably around 400 jins or so. From the vat came the sweet smell of wine. Obviously it was filled with expensive wine, which without a doubt added a lot more weight to the vat. But he did not seem to be using any strength in his arm at all. Every step he took the floorboards moaned and bent from the weight. Panic engulfed the bottom level as the owner, waiters, cooks, all the patrons, and everyone else scrambled out, fearing that the entire floor would collapse on top of them. Coldly, the monk Zhao Mu spoke up. I am honored that my Taoist brother would show himself here, but what's the point in bringing the paper-burning vat from our humble little temple? Let me introduce you to the 7 heroes of the south. Qu Chuji made a respectful gesture with his left hand and said, this humble Taoist has just visited your holy temple, where I heard from the other monks that the venerable monk was inviting me for a drink at Pavilion of the Drunken Immortal. I figured that you would have undoubtedly invited some other friends. It turns out I was right. I have long admired the 7 heroes of the south. I am fortunate today to make your acquaintance. Monk Zhao Mu turned to the 7 people and said, this is Elder Chung Chunzi Qu Chuji of the Quanzhen sect. I'm sure everyone has heard of him. Turning around to Qu Chuji, he pointed at the blind man and continued, this is the head of the 7 heroes, the hero K. Flying bat soaring through the sky Kazhener. He followed by introducing the others, all the while Wanyan Honglu giving this all of his attention and memorizing their names. Number 2 in rank was that poor and downtrodden-looking scholar that stole his money, named Magic Hand Scholar Zhukong. The fat, short fellow that arrived first was Horse God Han Baoju. He ranked 3rd. The peasant that carried the load of firewood was number 4. His name was Wood Chopper of the Southern Mountains Namziran. Rank number 5 was that huge man that looked like a butcher, smiling Duda Zhang Asheng. The little fellow that looked like a merchant was surnamed Quan. Jinfa was his given name, and his nickname was Hidden Hero of the bustling city. The fisher girl was called Yue Maiden Sword Hong Xioying, obviously the youngest of the 7 heroes. All the while the monk Zhao Mu was introducing everyone. Qu Chuji would very respectfully bow a little as a sign of respect, but his right hand was still holding up the vat and there was no sign of fatigue at all. A few of the braver ones of the people downstairs saw that there was no immediate danger and actually walked back in to see what was going on. Kazhener spoke up. People call us 7 brothers and sister the 7 freaks because we are a rather odd collection of characters. We dare not assume the name 7 heroes that the monk Zhao Mu called us. All of us have long admired the famed 7 masters of Quanzhen, especially the elder Chung Chunzi, whose many chivalrous deeds we have all heard of. The monk Zhao Mu is the warmest and friendly man. We can't understand how he could have offended Elder Qi. If the elder thinks anything of us, then please let the 7 of us be a mediator for the dispute. Besides, even though Taoism and Buddhism worship different types of deities, you 2 gentlemen are still both monks or priests and members of the martial world. Why don't we forgive and forget so we can just gather here and have a nice little drink together? Qu Chuji replied. I have never met the venerable monk Zhao Mu before, nor is there any gratitude or grudges between the 2 of us. As long as he hands over 2 people, then I personally will immediately go to the Fahua monastery to ask for forgiveness. Kazhener asked which 2 people? Qu Chuji replied, I have 2 very good friends who were killed by corrupt officials working with Jin. Their widows are all alone in the world. Hero K, do you think that I should step into this matter? When Wanyan Honglu heard this, The cup in his hand suddenly shook and some wine spilled onto the table. Zhener replied, "It won't even matter if they are widows of the monk's good friends. Even if none of us have ever met them, if we knew about something like this happening, we would step in and do the best we can to take care of them. This is something that should be done without any hesitation." Qu Chuji loudly replied, "That's right. I just want the monk Zhao Mu to hand those 2 widows over to me. He is a monk, how could he keep 2 widows in his monastery and not hand them over? The 7 heroes here are reasonable and righteous people. Please do the right thing." When he finished saying this, not only were the monk Zhao Mu and the 7 freaks shocked, Wanyan Hongluo was quite surprised as well. He thought, is he not talking about Madame Yang and Madame Go but someone else? The monk Zhao Mu's face was burnt yellowish, to begin with, now it was even more burned looking. He could not bring himself to reply for a while as he could only stammer, You are talking nonsense. Qu Chuji was furious. "You are a man of the martial world too, how dare you do such a shameful deed?" He pushed with his right hand and the several hundred kilograms heavy vats with the wine and it went flying towards the monk Zhao Mu. The monk immediately jumped aside. The people that gathered at the end of the stairs were frightened out of their wits and all of them turned around and pushed their way down the stairs in a panic. Smiling Duda Zhang figured that, although the vat was heavy, he would still be able to handle it with his strength. So he stepped up, channeled some inner strength into his arms, and waited until the vat arrived before he, with a shout, grabbed a hold of it. The muscles on his back and his shoulders bulged out as he was actually able to control the vat all by himself. As he lifted the vat up over his head, the amount of force exerted under his feet was too great and with one loud crack, his left foot went through the floorboards, causing the crowd downstairs to scream. Zhang Asheng took 2 steps forward, bent his arms slightly, and, with the move opening the windows to view the moon, he threw the vat back at Qu Chuji. Qu Chuji caught the vat with his right hand and laughed. The 7 freaks of the south are just like the rumors say, very deserving of their fame. Then his expression darkened as he turned to the monk Zhao Mu. "What happened to those 2 widows? You are forcing 2 widows to live in your monastery, what for? If you dare to touch a single strand of their hair, I'll smash your bones until they are dust and burn down that monastery of yours." Zhu Chong flicked his fan and said while shaking his head, "The monk Zhao Mu is an honorable and respected monk, how could he do such a shameful thing? Elder Qi must have heard of this from someone shameless and despicable. This kind of gossip can't be trusted." Qu Chuji was still furious. "I saw it with my own eyes. How could it be untrue?" The 7 freaks were surprised by this. The monk Zhao Mu finally spoke up. "If you want to come here and make a name for yourself here south of the Yangtze, that's fine. But you don't need to drag my name through the dirt. You go out into Jiangnan and ask around, see how many people think I would do such a thing?" Qu Chuji snickered. "All right, you've got helpers and want to win by sheer numbers. I am involved in this matter now, so there's no way you can get away from this. You are using the sacred ground of your deity to hide women, that's bad already, but the women's husbands are the descendants of patriots and they were murdered." Zhener spoke up. "Elder Q accused monk Zhao Mu of hiding 2 women, but monk Zhao Mu denies it. Why don't all of us go to the temple and see who's right and who's not? Although I'm blind, my ears are still working fine." His 6 brothers and sister immediately agreed with him. Qu Chuji sneered. "Search the temple? I have already searched it inside and out. But 2 women walked in and apparently disappeared. The only possibility is that he hid them. I will forget this if the monk hands them over." Zhu Chong replied, "What if it turns out that those 2 women aren't women?" Qu Chuji was confused. "What?" Zhu Chong answered with a straight face, "They are fairies and either know how to become invisible or become one with the earth." The other 6 freaks couldn't help but laugh at that remark. Qu Chuji was furious. "So you are mocking me? All right, it seems like you people are taking the monk's side, true?" Zhener righteously replied. Although our martial arts might be laughable in the eyes of a master from the Quanzhen sect, we still have a bit of a name here south of the Yangtze. Ask around, people will say the 7 freaks of the south. They may be crazy, but they are not cowards. We won't dare bully others, but we can't let others bully us either. Qiu Chuji replied, I have heard much about the good name of the 7 heroes of the south. This matter does not concern you, so please do not get involved in this sticky matter. Let this monk and I settle it between us. Monk, follow me. He reached out toward the monk Zhao Mu's wrist. Monk Zhao Mu dipped his wrist and dodged this move. Seeing that the two of them have started to fight, Horse God Han Baoju shouted, Reverend Q, why are you being so unreasonable? Qiu Chuji stepped back and asked, what do you mean? Han Baoju replied, we trust the monk Zhao Mu. If he says there aren't any women, then there really aren't any women. Which man living in the martial world would lie? Qiu Chuji replied. If he isn't lying, then am I causing him trouble for no reason whatsoever? I saw it with my own eyes. If I'm wrong, then I'll dig out these 2 eyeballs and give them to you. I am definitely going to see this to the end. It seems like the 7 of you are definitely getting involved, right? The 7 freaks answered simultaneously, right. Qiu Chuji replied. All right, I'll drink a toast of wine to all 7 heroes. Let the fight get started after we are finished toasting. He dipped his right hand and lowered the vat to his mouth. After taking a good gulp, he shouted, if you please. With one flick of the hand, the vat went flying towards Zhang Asheng again. Zhang Asheng thought to himself, if I catch it over my head like I did last time, then it would be impossible for me to drink out of it, won't it? So he took 2 steps back, held his hands in front of his chest, and waited for the vat. Once it arrived, he threw his arms to the side and let the vat hit him straight in the chest. He was born chubby, so his chest was covered with layers upon layers of fat and muscle, which acted as a cushion as the vat hit his chest. He immediately took a deep breath, flexed his chest muscles, brought his arms along the side of the vat, and caught the vat. He then lowered his head and took a huge gulp of the wine. Excellent wine. He praised as he suddenly retracted his arms back to the front of his chest and, before the vat could fall onto the floor, executed the move mountain moving double palms, sending the vat flying back towards Qiu Chuji. This move was quick, powerful, and fast, obviously a move from a master of martial arts moves. Wanyan Hongla was secretly shocked by what he had just witnessed. Qiu Chuji caught the vat and took another gulp before shouting, a toast to Big Brother Ke. And the vat went flying towards Ke Zhener. A thought shot across Wanyan Honglai's mind, this man is blind, how is he supposed to catch it? But it turned out that not only was Ke Zhener the head of the 7 freaks, his martial arts were also the best, and he could easily tell where the smallest of weapons were from the sound they made, so this huge vat was no problem for him. He just calmly sat there as if he didn't notice anything until the vat was just about to hit his head. Only then did he suddenly raise his right arm and hit the bottom of the vat with his staff. That vat spun endlessly at the top of the staff, just like those plates at the end of an acrobat's stick. Suddenly his iron staff moved a little off-center and the vat began to lean as if it was going to fall onto his head. For some reason, the vat could not fall over and it stayed there, tilted. As the wine in the vat poured out of it in a neat little steam, Ke Zhener opened his mouth and the wine flowed neatly into it. After taking 3 or 4 mouthfuls, his iron staff moved and was again in the middle of the vat bottom. He pushed his staff upwards and the vat flew straight up. With a swing of the staff, he smacked the vat back towards Qiu Chuji with a loud bang. The echoes could still be heard when Qiu Chuji caught it again. Laughing, Qiu Chuji commented, Hero K must like to spin plates in his spare time. Ke Zhener coldly answered, when I was little, I used to live off of the money I got from that little trick. Qiu Chuji observed, not forgetting where he comes from is the sign of a real man. 4th Brother Nan, a toast. He took another gulp from the vat and threw it at him. Nanziren didn't say a word as he waited for the vat to arrive and then lifted his carrying stick to block. Dang! The vat was stopped cold in midair and began to fall. Nanziren cupped his hand, scooped up some wine from the vat, and downed it. While holding his carrying stick flat, he knelt down on his right knee with the middle of the carrying stick resting on his left knee. He pushed down on one end of the stick with his right hand and caught the bottom of the vat with the other end, flicking the vat up in the air once again. He was just about to hit the vat back to Kyuchuji when the hidden hero of the bustling city Quan Jinfa laughed and said, "I make a living selling stuff, so I like taking advantage. I might as well get a bit of wine without doing anything." He ran up to Nanziren's side and, when the vat fell back down again, scooped up a bit of wine and downed it. Suddenly he jumped up, curled his legs so that the bottom of both of his feet were on the vat, and as he pushed in midair, he caused his body to take off like an arrow and the vat to fly off in the opposite direction towards Kyuchuji. His body landed on the side of the wall and he lightly clambered down. The fan in magical hand scholar Zhu Chong's hand did not stop flicking and he could not stop commenting beautiful, beautiful. Kyuchuji caught the vat and took another big gulp before saying wonderful, wonderful. And now a toast to brother Zhu. Zhu Chong shouted in desperation, "Aiyo! Don't do that. I'm not even strong enough to subdue a chicken, and I can't hold my alcohol at all. I'll surely drink to death if I'm not squashed to death first." Before he finished, the vat was already heading his way. Zhu Chong was shouting at the top of his lungs. "Someone's going to be smashed to death. Help! Help!" He made a scoop with his fan into the vat and brought it up to his mouth. Then he turned the fan around and hit the bottom of the vat with it and sent it flying off. Crack! The floorboards beneath him suddenly collapsed, forming a huge hole in the floor, and he fell through it, all the while screaming help! Help! Everyone present knew that he was just playing around, so nobody was really surprised or worried. Wanyan Honglao, however, seeing that he was able to flick away a huge vat with a small fan and with a force that was no weaker than that which came from Nanziren's stick, was once again shocked. The Yue sword maiden Han Zhaoying shouted, "My turn for a drink." She hopped off with her right foot and she took off like a bird. Just as she flew over the top of the vat, she lowered her head and took a gulp before nimbly and gently landing on the windowsill on the opposite side of the room. She was skilled at Qinggong lightness, kung fu and swordplay, but her strength wasn't up to par with the others. She figured that there was no way she would be able to catch this vat when it came flying toward her. Tossing it back towards Kyuchuji was even further out of the question. So she seized the opportunity and took her turn using her Qinggong. Meanwhile, the vat was still flying out the window and into the street. With the street crowded as it was, it would be disastrous if the vat landed outside. Kyuchuji was a bit worried and was just about to jump out onto the street to catch it. He suddenly heard a whistle as a person in yellow ran past him. Another whistle and the yellow horse that downstairs ran out onto the street. To the people gathered around, it looked as if the huge ball of meat suddenly hit the vat and fell as one with it. The ball of meat and the vat both landed on the back of the yellow horse. The yellow horse ran forward a couple of zhangs. 1 zhang equals 3.3 meters or 10 feet before turning around and running back into the pavilion and up the stairs. The horse god Han Baoyu's body was actually underneath the belly of the horse with his left foot in the stirrup and his right foot in both of his hands were holding the vat, balancing it neatly on the saddle. The horse was fast and steady as if the stairs were flat ground to him. Han Baoju jumped back onto the horse. He put his head into the vat and took a huge mouthful before pushing the vat off onto the floor of the room with his left hand. Letting out a hearty laugh, he cracked his whip and the horse jumped out of the window and, like a Pegasus, gently landed in the middle of the street. Han Baoju jumped off his horse and walked back up the stairs along with Zhu Chong. Kyuchuji complimented. "The 7 heroes of the South are really as good as the rumors say. I am speechless at the display of martial arts I have just seen." Giving the 7 heroes face, I promise not to cause this monk any more trouble if he hands over the 2 women, and I will leave at once when he has. Kazhenur replied, Elder Q, you are in the wrong here. The monk Zhao Mu has been meditating and is cleansed of worldly emotions for several decades now. He is a truly enlightened monk. He is someone that all of us have admired for a long time. The Farhua Monastery Temple of Oriental Zen is also one of the famous sacred Buddhist landmarks here in the city of Jiangnan. How could any females, not to mention widows, possibly be hidden inside it? Qu Chuji replied, in this world, there are always those people who are hypocrites and do not deserve their reputations. Trying to control his anger, Han Baoju shouted back, so is the elder saying that he doesn't believe us? Qu Chuji replied just as loudly, I much rather believe my very own eyes. Han Baoju replied, so what is Elder Q planning to do now? Even though he was short, he still was quite intimidating and heroic in his own way because of his loud and clear voice. Qu Chuji replied, this matter originally had nothing to do with you 7, but since you are insisting on jumping into this matter, you are obviously quite confident of your abilities. Forgive me for daring to challenge the 7 heroes. If I lose, then I'll do as everyone here wishes. Kazhenur replied. If the elder insists on going through with this, then would the Reverend please choose how we should settle this matter? Qu Chuji thought for a moment and said, we never had any grudges previously, nor have we ever wronged each other. I have long admired the heroic name and reputation of the 7 heroes of the South. I don't think any of us want to start fighting with swords or fists, so how about this? He shouted. Innkeeper! Bring 14 big bowls. The innkeeper had been hiding on the floor below, but upon hearing his instructions and noticing that it had been quiet for a while upstairs, he immediately went to bring the bowls up. Qu Chuji instructed him to place the bowls in 2 rows and fill them to the brim with wine. Turning to the 7 freaks, he said, I challenge everyone to a drinking contest. For every bowl you guys drink, I will drink one as well until there is a winner. What do you say? Han Baoju and Zhang Asheng were both huge drinkers, so they immediately agreed without any hesitation. Kazhenur frowned and replied, this is 1 against 7. Even if we win, we didn't win it fairly. Could Reverend please choose something else? Qu Chuji frowned. What makes you so sure that you'll beat me? Even though Han Zhaoying was a girl, she was still quite macho, so she immediately answered back. All right, let's go at it then. This is the first time I have met someone that dares to look down at us so much. As she talked, she grabbed a bowl of wine and downed it in one breath. It was obvious she drank it too quickly as her face flushed red immediately. Qu Chuji complimented. Miss Han really is a man among females. Everyone please. The other 6 of the 7 freaks each picked up a bowl and drank it. Qu Chuji responded by downing 7 bowls of wine in an instant, each with just 1 gulp and without a single pause for breath in between. The innkeeper immediately shouted praise for everyone and filled up the 14 bowls, which the 8 finished off immediately. By the 3rd round of drinks, Han Zhaoying could only drink half a bowl before having to pause because her hands were shaking. Zhang Asheng took the bowl out of her hand. Sister, I'll finish this for you. Han Zhaoying inquired. Elder Q, is that all right? Qu Chuji replied without hesitation. Of course, it doesn't matter who drinks it as long as it is 7 bowls. Another round and Quan Jinfa had to back out as well. Seeing that after 28 bowls Qu Chuji was still looking sober and normal, the 7 freaks were quite shocked. Wanyan Honglu thought as he looked on. Hopefully this Taoist will get drunk and these 7 freaks will finish him off before he can do anything. Quan Jinfa calculated that his side still had 5 men left, each a heavy drinker, and could probably drink 3 or 4 more rounds. The opponent could not possibly be able to hold another 20 or so drinks in his belly, or could he? Even if he really could not get drunk, his belly could only hold so much. Figuring that victory was in hand, he was feeling pretty good. Then he accidentally glanced down at the floor and saw that the floorboards under Qiuchuji's feet were obviously soaked through. Shocked, he whispered to Zhu Cheng, "Second brother, take a look at his feet." Zhu Cheng only looked down for a moment before muttering, "Not good," has using his inner strength to force the wine up through his feet. Quan Jinfa quietly replied, "Thought's right. I didn't think that his inner strength would be so powerful. What should we do now?" Zhu Cheng thought to himself. With this little trick, he could go 100 more bowls without any problem. I have to come up with another contest or something. He took a step back before suddenly falling through the hole in the floorboards that he caused earlier and then climbing back up through the hole, all the while shouting, "So drunk, I am so drunk." Another round of drinks, and now the floorboards under Qiuchuji's feet were saturated with wine and little bit of a fountain squirted out from the boards onto the floor below. By now Nan Xiren, Han Baoju, and everyone else had noticed, and everyone was secretly admiring such a powerful display of inner strength.